Friends, kindly be seated. Thank you, Livingston and team.
Encouraging of fellow human is ever the best welcoming gift of all. With a cheerful heart, I request the dynamic coordinator of the Department of English, Dr. C. Dhanapal, to welcome the gathering.
Good afternoon, one and all present here. First of all, I would like to welcome and thank our principal, Dr. D. Paul Dayabaran sir, for he has been a pillar of support in all the academic and all the extracurricular, co-curricular activities of our department. Whenever we approach him for any project, for anything, he never says no. And I welcome and I thank him for his unstinted support in all the activities of our department. I would like to welcome the head of the department, Dr. Shobna in absentia. We all know that she has been working very hard in order to bring up the department, and we have been getting awards every year. It is because of the hard work done by our head of the department, Dr. Shobna. She is a little bit busy today. She is not able to come for this. Maybe she will join a little later. On behalf of everyone present here, I welcome her. I would also like to welcome our UG head of the department, Dr. Suresh Frederick. He is always supports all the activities, and sometimes he is the guiding force for all the activities in our department. Especially, he has been a pillar of support in all the research activities, not only of our department, but for the whole college. He is the UG head as well as the Dean of Research and Development of our college. So from these two capacities, he has been supporting our students in many ways, especially in the research activities. On behalf of our department and on behalf of everyone present here, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Dr. Arya Ayyappan, we contacted her through one of our students, now turned staff in Christ University, Dr. Daniel Jnanaraj. And when we approached Dr. Arya Ayyappan, I think she readily said yes for this program. Okay. And I think she has prepared a lot for this one-day webinar or lecture. But madam, we would like to tell you that we are in the threshold of Docufiction. And I think we have plans to introduce it in maybe in future. Okay, so we are expecting an introductory talk on Docufiction, positioning cinema and literature. And ma'am, first of all, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation. And you have meticulously planned everything, it seems. And you have given tentative dates, various topics. And you made us so accommodative. You made us so comfortable in talking with you, in arranging all these things. And I also, you were on time for this seminar. Ma'am, thank you very much for everything you have been extending for organizing this webinar. Okay, on behalf of our principal, on behalf of our department, and all the students who are present in this hall. I extend a warm welcome to you, ma'am, and also thank you. Please, students, give a big round of applause to our resource person. Thank you very much, ma'am. And this webinar is happening because of the efforts taken by Dr. Magdalene Diana. Okay, so இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் கூட நல்லா கை தட்டலாம் உங்களுக்கு. Yeah. So she has been running here and there, pillar to post, and making all sorts of arrangements. And she was talking on behalf of all the students, especially her class students, and made extensive arrangements, because arranging a seminar of this kind is not that easy, and that too both hybrid and online. And she has taken a lot of efforts to organize this seminar. On behalf of everyone present here, I welcome Dr. Magdalene Diana for this seminar, and I also thank her for taking a lot of efforts. She is well supported by the other class teachers, Dr. Annie, Dr. Susigaran, Dr. Rajalakshmi ma'am, and Dr. Geeta ma'am, okay, and almost, of course, all the teachers who are in the department, both shift 1 and shift 2, they all supported Dr. Diana and others in organizing this webinar. I welcome each and every one of them for this webinar. Okay, and this webinar is exclusively arranged for the second year, and a few third year students are also here. They are doing an introduction to media studies. Okay, hope this webinar, this special lecture will be an eye opener for all our students, because as far as the students of second BA are concerned, this is relatively a new push, new area. Okay, so hope all the students, dear students, I welcome each and every one of you for this special seminar, special webinar on this Docufiction and other things, and hope you will enjoy this. You will get benefit out of this seminar, and madam will give you some time for interaction also. You can also ask her questions, so that this seminar will be interesting, as well as it will be educating to all of us. Okay, so dear students, a big welcome to all the students who are present here. I also welcome all those who are supporting us, especially in online transmission and other things. A big welcome to the MC board. They are doing a wonderful job. Once again, a big welcome to all those who are present in this hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
A blessing is a promise of good things to come and a hope for the future. I kindly call upon our ever vibrant UG Head, Department of English, Dr. Suresh Frederick, to felicitate the event.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to congratulate the department for selecting this topic as well as arranging this program. On my behalf and the department's behalf, I thank all of you, especially the special speaker, Dr. Arya ma'am, for accepting this speech. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being part of this. At this juncture, when I think of this topic, docu-fiction, first I thought of Raymond Williams. Raymond Williams speaks on documentary novel, social documentary novels and social formula novels, personal documentary novels, personal formula novels. In those lines, I was thinking about this, but later on one day I was able to notice that this is more of movies, so film studies. I also teach film studies for my PG students Especially, I deal with film semiotics. So it is totally irrelevant when I think of semiotics here. So I was just searching for some points. I find that this is documentary, and especially this documentation is with real life characters. So it's really interesting that when you bring in real life characters into a fictional world, so how much fiction can be included like that? I was thinking about it. So I'm here to listen to your introductory talk. Just like any other student, I'm here. Thank you, ma'am. We are all here to enjoy your talk. Once again, I also thank my colleagues in the department, especially Dr. Magdalene Diana, for being an instrument in arranging this. Also, from the bottom of my heart, I also thank her own colleagues from the department like Dr. Suzy Giran and Dr. Annie for being part of this. Of course, there are other senior professors like Dr. Rajalakshmi ma'am. Without her, there is no program like this. So I welcome her. Thank you, ma'am, for being part of it. And once again, I thank Dr. CD for promoting this kind of activity, because that is the need of the hour. Because anything curricular is okay, but extracurricular, co-curricular, that is the need of the hour. The students need some kind of extra inputs to their minds. So I thank him profusely. And once again, thank the department and all the people part of this. Thank them and also congratulate the department and hand over the mic. And also thank Daniel Nyanraj from your department for instrumental in arranging such a wonderful speaker for us. So I hand over the mic with a humble heart to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It is only proper and customary in our country to honor our guest. I request Ms. S. Ranjini Priya, Assistant Professor of English, Bishop Heber College, Trichy, to introduce the speaker.
A very good afternoon to all. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome and introduce the speaker of today, Dr. Arya Ayyappan. Dr. Arya Ayyappan is an associate professor with the Department of English and Cultural Studies, Christ, deemed to be University, Bangalore. Ma'am is especially concerned about the working class society of Malayalam film industry. And a prime focus has been the politics of film, representing gender paradigms, genre grading, stardom, off-screen, on-screen dynamics, socio-political nexus, and the interlinking of blue humanities through films. Ma'am has published several articles and 2 books in the field of film studies and has completed a monograph on the Malayalam filmmaker P. Padmarajan with the National Film Archives of India, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Pune. We are happy to have you among us, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Knowledge shared is knowledge squared. Without further ado, I invite our speaker, Dr. Arya Ayyappan, to deliver her lecture.
Shall I continue?
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, you can
You
please
can
start.
continue, ma'am. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kaur, and straight to swell. So to
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry for
yes.
interrupting. We are not able to hear you, ma'am. There's a breakage of signal.
Are you able to hear now? Now it's clear.
A little bit.
Do you
clear.
want me to remove?
Yes, ma'am. Can we try?
I'll try it.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it's totally inaudible now. Sorry, ma'am.
I'm able to hear you clearly.
Yes, ma'am. Now we are able to hear you,
Now
ma'am.
you're able to hear me. So shall I continue this way without the headset?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Will
ma'am.
that be fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was using the headset only to say keep at bay the surround sound. That is what. I'm in the campus still, so that is why I thought I'll use the headset. First of all, thank you so much to all the faculty members of Bishop Herbert College for giving me this opportunity to interact with students. And thank you especially to Miss Diana, because I have been constantly in touch with her and she has been always giving me all the required information. Thank you so much, ma'am. And happy to see a lot of vibrant young faces seated over there. So I hope this becomes an interactive session, because every session I say that, students would have seen a lot of films, and it's a great learning experience for us as well, because we get to learn from their questions also. So I'll be happy to take your questions. And as Sir rightly pointed out at the beginning, this will be an introductory session, because that is what Diana ma'am told me, that, you've been exposed to media and film studies. This will be an introductory session. Okay? So I will present my PPT. Please let me know if that is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. And in case, yeah. So the topic for today's session, without further delay, I shall start off. We are looking at positioning docufiction, cinema literature interface. Now, since I have been told that, you have not been oriented towards, say, film studies in particular, but you have started with the idea of taking it forward, which is a very great step. So I will just quickly introduce these terms for you, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But since I'll be using that in my presentation, let me just clarify that for you. Okay. Now, when we talk about films as audiovisual text, there is always an understanding of the fact that we need to know the techniques that we use for reading these films as audiovisual text. The first one is mise-en-scène. Mise-en-scène comes in terms of understanding what are the sets or the settings that are being used. Like if you have watched the film Bahubali, you would know the way in which they capture the entire, kingdom there. So that is in terms of the setting that has been done. On the other hand, if you watch a film like Lawrence of Arabia, one of the famous old films, you would know that, the wide desert becomes the set, the real location for the entire film. Similarly, now mise-en-scène, when I'm talking about mise-en-scène, please understand, I'm talking about all the arrangements that go before the actual film starts. Okay, the shooting starts. Before you start the camera or set up the what you call the shooting process itself, what are the arrangements that we do is what we call as mise-en-scène. So the setting and sets is first one. Second one is props that you use. Now, when you have a crime film, don't you look at props like guns and, bullets that they use? All of these become the props over there. Okay. The moment I talk about Charlie Chaplin, can you imagine Charlie Chaplin without the walking stick over there? So there are certain kind of, iconic kind of representations which we have understood over a period of time. Now, along with the props, another aspect that's important is characters. What kind of characters? Now, this is important when we look at docufiction as well. Who are the characters in a docufiction? What is the way in which their character arc has been tracked or taken forward? That talks about the characterization. Are they flat characters? Are they round characters for you? Do these characters have a typical kind of understanding in terms of qualities? These are things that we take into consideration. Costumes. Now, have you all watched My Fair Lady? Then you would know how the character dresses up. Or if you have watched films like, we say, Ben-Hur, then Antony and Cleopatra, all those films, those historical films, don't you expect the characters to wear certain costumes which are quite representative of the time period? So that is also equally important for us to understand how the character is positioned, what is the setting, what is the time period. Next element is blocking. Blocking is how the characters are presented in relation to one another. For example, I'll give a quick reference to Godfather. Coppola's film Godfather. You have Godfather, the famous gangster who is sitting in the room, and there is a person who comes and stands in front of him. He takes hold of Godfather's palm and he kisses the palm because that is the way in which he shows the respect. So here I'm talking about the blocking as the position of one character in relation to another. So what are we showing out here? Godfather as having command and power, and the other person is showing his respect to him. So that is what we mean in terms of blocking. Then lighting. Lighting is equally important. When we are showing a happy scene, you automatically expect bright lights out there. You automatically expect a well-lit light out. As against a scene of crime, you would expect a lot of shadows, you would expect the interplay of what you say, light and shadows, all of those. Okay, dimly lit rooms. When I say horror film, isn't it the understanding of a dimly lit room, where these kind of, horror scenes are being enacted, right? You would have watched Pulp Fiction, those kind of films as well. Then Dracula, then Psycho. Likewise, you would have watched quite a number of horror films as well, right? So there you would see how lighting works. So mise-en-scène refers to all the arrangements that we do before the actual shooting starts. That is setting, sets, props, characters, blocking and lighting. Okay, just keep this in your mind because that will help you analyze a docufiction in detail. Okay, now once all these arrangements are done, this is just like how you would play for theater, right? Before the play starts, you get all the arrangements done on stage. Now the play is starting. Similarly, like how the filmmaker says, start camera action, and the camera starts rolling. And that is where you have cinematography. Where is the camera placed? What is the distance of the camera from the subject? Why do filmmakers want close-up shots? In many of the docufiction, you will find close-up shots prominently used. What is the reason for doing that? Okay. Then high-angle camera. Camera is placed above, it looks down upon a subject to show the power over the subject. Or low-angle camera. Camera is placed down and it looks towards someone, where you're showing about, looking up to something. So camera becomes extremely important. Distance, the angle, the camera movement. Imagine a scene where you have, what do you call, a police chasing a thief. Don't you have rapid camera movements out there? Because it's a chase scene. As against, let's say you have a romantic scene where a lover and his sweetheart, they are sitting in the park. Definitely the camera will not keep running around because it's a slow movement to capture the emotion of that time period. So cinematography is important. Once all the film has, the entire film has been shot as per what they have in mind, what they do is that they put it according to a certain logic, selecting and arranging the shots as per a logic. That is called as editing. So that happens in docufiction, documentary, every other film, because you have a certain logic in mind and you want to arrange it according to that. So haven't you heard filmmakers saying, this is my story arc and I want the shots to be arranged accordingly? That is where editing comes into. Now sound, thanks to digital age, we have on location sound, being used. But earlier, sound used to be added later. Like if you have a scene where somebody has passed away, don't you have a background score which will intensify that emotion? On the other hand, you have a scene where somebody has won a victory in the war. You have the cheering sound, the background blowing of the trumpets, everything is to ensure that, that sound of victory comes across. Similarly, color is important. Documentary, if you have seen, I'm not talking about docufiction, I'm talking about documentary right now, you would see most often uses footage. Okay, a famous documentary like Night and Fog by Alan Rayner. Okay, it uses footage to capture a certain time period in the past, and all that footage is black and white. It is to show you passage of time, something which happened in the past per se. So color also adds to the mood. It adds to the emotion of a particular scene. So all of these are equally important. Are we adding color later, or is it color in particular scenario? Certain kind of colors are being propagated. Now, have you seen the 3 series film? Okay, this is a particular film called 3 colors red, 3 colors blue, and 3 colors white. Okay, it's Kieslowski's film. It's a famous film which captures the flag, the colors in the flag. So similarly, you will understand what it talks about in terms of, using colors in a particular film. I hope that is clear. Shall I move ahead? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Now let me come to my topic slowly. So before I start with, straight away, I cannot go into docufiction without giving you a sense of orientation. We need to understand that as much as you talk in literature about genre, like you talk about literature in genre, you talk about as, what do you say, drama, poetry, fiction, you say this genre in literature, right? Similarly, you need to understand that genre is important in films as well. Okay, because one, it is a type. It's a type. And I've given you different genres out here, like science fiction, action, comedy, drama, thriller, horror, war films, historical films, adventure films, musical. Likewise, you have any number of genres. That is a category or a type that we are doing. Now, how do we identify a genre? Okay, first one, to identify a genre based on the setting. Imagine a Western film. Western film, cowboys, okay, the horses, the inns, all of that happens in the Western frontier, the wide expanse of the frontier. Then, the moment I say horror films, isn't an isolated, desolate kind of, mansion where not many people are staying. That come to your mind. Don't you immediately think of that? Nowadays, we do have a lot of horror films which are otherwise enacted in common cinema. But this is definitely one thing that comes to your mind in terms of setting. Science fiction, you know what kind of setting that you have in science fiction. Another way in terms of reading genre is through characters. In science fiction film, you definitely expect characters like aliens and all in science fiction. Then, for example, if you're having a gangster film, gangsters as characters in that. If you are looking at what you say fantasy films, you would expect those kind of characters. So what is the kind of understanding that these kind of characters can be seen in a particular genre? Okay, so one is setting, second is characters. Third one is iconography. Iconography is nothing but visuals or images which function as icons for you. They become suggestive of certain things. The moment I talk about, again, I'll come back to one is, let's say, crime film. Okay, you would definitely expect some knives and say maybe guns over there, bloodshed over there, blood stains. All of these are what you expect. Similarly, I come back to something like historical films and which is set in a certain time period, you have a certain expectation that these can be seen in that. Horror films, you would see what you say, deserted house in which, cobwebs over there, then say furniture is kind of, torn, then you might expect a black cat out there. Likewise, you have a lot of understanding with regard to iconography. It can also be with regard to sounds as well, okay? Like you expect the creaking of a door, you expect some kind of, mysterious sound out there. So that also helps you in terms of identifying the genre. Now, last one, narrative, is where all of these three come together. The story, by the setting, the characters, the iconography, come together in your narrative. Okay. Now, what we need to understand is that genre is always characterized by certain conventions. Certain things are repeatedly shown. Like I told you about the Western film. You expect a cowboy there, you expect a lone there, you expect somebody who will come on a horseback, somebody who will come across as an outsider there. And all of those are certain conventions which have been repeatedly shown film after film, and therefore it becomes established for you. Okay. Then there is a particular style, how it is shown. Certain kind of ways in which, the scene starts off. Likewise, you have certain criteria being kept in mind. Subject matter. What is the subject matter that you are dealing with? In fantasy films, bring it out of In thriller films, like for example, if you have watched, Hitchcock's films, you will know that, how he caters to the element of suspense. You're always, waiting for some suspense element out there. So how that is being shown. Having said this, please understand a genre gets established through similarities and differences. That is, genres are based on instances of similarities and differences. How one genre is similar to one film in a genre is similar to another film in the same genre. Like, for example, if I were to use, let's say, comedy films, or if I were to use mystery films or documentary like Man on Wire, Fahrenheit 9/11, all of these films, if I take them, the documentary on Princess Diana, I would say these are all documentaries. That is similarity. But how is each documentary different from other documentaries? Also, how is a documentary different from a fiction film? So that is what I mean in terms of instances of similarities and differences. So keep this in your mind. That will help you in terms of understanding, reading, documentary, narrative films, as well as your documentation. Hope the pace at which I'm going is fine. Am I going too fast or is it fine?
Ma'am.
Fine. Okay. Fine. Thank you. So now, when I say genre, please understand it enables classification. You can see, it targets specific audience. So similarly, based on, documentary appeals to a certain audience, history appeals to a certain audience, historical appeals to a certain audience, humor for a certain audience, likewise. So one, it can target specific audiences. Another one, audiences can also select. Now, if I tell you tomorrow we are going to watch a biopic, then isn't it easy for you to understand what should we be prepared for? Or if I tell you tomorrow we're going to watch a tragedy, then you know what to expect over there. So it guides audiences selection as well. Now, having said this, understand genres are flexible. They change with time. That is, they combine different elements. Now, for example, your science fiction, isn't it science plus fiction? Your romantic comedy, romance plus comedy, your rom-com, as they say. Similarly, docufiction is a change that has happened over time period, understanding documentary as a separate one and fiction as a separate one and bringing them together. Okay, so there is flexibility, there is change within documentary, which can be taken forward with time. Now, when we talk about films, let me come to, I have listed a few film genres for you over here: action, adventure, animation, biography, crime, detective, documentary, drama. Likewise, you have any number of them. Okay, there are features unique for all of this: film noir, mystery, sports films, thriller films, war films. Likewise, you have quite a number of features that are unique. Conventions, as I told you, in a crime film, what to expect. In a biography, what to expect. There are certain conventions. It also helps in categorization. Also understand that these genres can be modified with time. Okay, sometimes you mix two genres. Okay, like for example, film noir, that science fiction that we're talking about. All of these mixing of genres also happen. Now, there's a short film called Gunfighter. Please watch it sometime. It is a very short film of just about 8 minutes. Okay, just about 8 minutes. It starts off as a Western film, but goes on to become a humorous one as well. Similarly, there is a Japanese film called One Cut of the Dead. It starts off as a horror film. You will be really scared because it's a zombie film. But midway through, the zombie film turns out to be a complete riot of comedy. So it becomes a zombie comedy. So how does the mixing happen? Now, through the mixing, what happens is that otherwise you would be on the edge of your seat, completely petrified because of it being a horror film. But the comedy kind of mitigates that horror for you. That is where it deconstructs certain popular established notions. So what happens is that, the other day I was showing One Cut of the Dead to my students, and I was telling them, look at that, because, otherwise when you see just a hand lying, a person's hand is lying on the floor, you would scream, right? You would scream out of fear and the terror of seeing them. But here in that, after a point of time, you start laughing over there because you know it is entirely based on a humorous kind of episode. So that is what I meant in terms of deconstructing. Docufiction also does that for you. Time and again, bringing in documentary and fiction together, thereby deconstructing our understanding of how to take it forward. Now let me go to individual components of the film for you. Okay, first one is fiction film. Okay, fiction film, as you all know, you have all been reading literature, you've all been familiar with a lot of stories. One, it is a completely fictionalized story or an event or a narrative. Okay, the main goal here is to entertain and engage the audience, have a very gripping story. Now, like I told you about Bahubali, RRR, all of these are very, what do you say, engaging stories. Like then I'm sure you would have enjoyed Rajnikant's Padayappa. I can think about a few names, across languages. So aren't these films which completely, tell you a very engaging and a very compelling kind of story? Now, there are certain elements that you need to keep in mind when we talk about fiction. Okay, sorry, I've written here 4. I actually mean 5 elements of fiction. Sorry. First one is setting. Where is the story unfolding? Now, have you watched Amitabh Bachchan's films in the 80s? That is the time when we talk about the Angry Young Man films. The film opens with a wide panoramic shot of a village scene. You would have watched Sholay, the blockbuster film. You would again remember, how the wide expanse, the panoramic shot of village and all of this become the setting where the entire action happens. Who are the characters? The first image is from Godfather, the first one, Marlon Brando's picture that you have. The other one is the famous film, The Seven Samurai, as well, that you have over there. Okay. So then the characters, who are the characters? What kind of theme are you engaging with? Theme of what you say, enmity, theme of what you call possession, theme of what you call as what you say, self kind of, what you call a self-centered kind of understanding, or we're talking about discrimination. Any theme can come in over. Okay, plot. Plot is how the events are arranged in relation to a cause-effect relationship, meaning something happened, therefore this happened. Like, for example, in a film, if they show you a house where they show you the smoke coming out of it, what would you say? You would automatically say there is fire in the house, right? So that is cause-effect relationship. That is shown in a. So the smoke is coming because there is fire. So the cause-effect relationship. Last one is the style. How is the fiction film then presented? What is the style in presenting it? All of this are extremely. Okay. So this is fiction which makes you believe in a world. You completely forget yourself, you believe in the story, and you are going ahead with the narrative. Isn't that also because of certain techniques that you use over there? Okay, Wizard of Oz, you would have watched this famous film. Yes. So believable narratives and characters, you can completely believe in those narratives and characters, you can relate to them. Okay, cohesive. They are arranged in such a tightly packed manner that you understand there is a connection that comes across. Then story with cause and effects that I told you already, convincing audience that whatever is unfolding is real. Students, when you are watching films, sometimes you laugh with the characters, sometimes you cry with the characters, sometimes you are extremely angry, all of those. Why is it so? Because you are kind of imaginatively getting transported to that narrative world, and that seems real to you. Okay? That seems real to you. That is all because of continuity editing. You can think of it. Story happens in one linear chronological manner, right? If you have watched Woody Allen's films, Woody Allen stops in between and looks at the camera and talks to the audience. That is to break the idea of willing suspension of disbelief. He wants the audiences to be aware of the fact that this is a film. You're watching a film. You're not supposed to forget yourself. So that is the intention why he looks at the camera and talks to the audience. Now, in fiction film, the dialogues are not real dialogues. They are scripted. You have a certain set of audience in mind. Like, for example, I'm sure there are many of you who will be watching or have watched at least one film by the actor Salman Khan. Many of you would have watched, or what do you say, Vijay, or Dhanush, or any of those actors for that matter. Don't they all deliver certain dialogues, keeping a certain audience in mind? They expect that, right? They expect them to speak in a particular manner, articulate few things. So the dialogues are scripted. They're not real dialogues per se. So you use a range of techniques as well, camera angles, which will make it seem as though you believe in it. Lighting is also helping you. That sound is also adding. Editing, as I told you, the arrangement is also happening in a very chronological. Having said that, fiction films can also be categorized into so many genres: drama, comedy, romance, action, horror, war. Likewise, you can have different kinds of fictional films as well. Okay, you would have watched films like Gladiator and all, Braveheart, all of those. Then historical films like Troy, all of these films, right? So you would understand how the fictional element, or the famous French film Perfume, right? So all of these are definitely bringing you the idea of these being something that is made by somebody's imagination. It is made according to somebody's imagination. Now I come to the next part of it, that is documentary. Okay. Now I've spoken about fiction film. The second part of it is documentary. Documentary basically, it documents reality. I'm not saying it's reality per se. There is a factual account. Okay. You have non-fictional content in that. The purpose is to either educate or entertain the audience. Now, if you haven't watched this documentary, please watch. This is one of my all-time favorite documentary, Man on Wire. Okay, a man who has walked on the thin wire between buildings and all. You would have heard about him, right? So this is a very thrilling documentary which captures the real life, actions per se. There is a lot of footage, and then the man is old, and then now he is thinking about how he walked between buildings, walked between towers, and likewise in the air. You can see that the poster clearly explains that. So documentaries deal with a lot of subjects. Okay, it can be politics. It can be what you call. It can be about concentration camps, Night and Fog, as I told you. It can be about the first documentary was about the life of the Eskimos, that is Nanook of the North. That was the first documentary. Or it can be on science, it can be on art, it can be anything. For example, there's a documentary on how the Dior perfume, they make their perfume and their fashion show. So it is about fashion. Okay. Now, what happens in a documentary is that they use interviews, they talk to people, that is also being recorded. Then earlier, when the real thing happened, when this man walked on the wire, they have shot all of this. Okay, that is shown in the documentary as well. So thereby you understand that all of these actually happened, plus the extra information that you get. So they can be either very observational, it can just tell you what happened at a point of time, or it can be in terms of probing into why something happened in a particular manner. See, for example, there are documentaries on 9/11, which clearly tell you what happened at that point. They're probing into it. They're trying to understand. Okay. Now, of late, documentaries are becoming very popular because you have a lot of streaming platforms. Earlier, once in a while, and when it was shown on television, that was the only possibility. But now, most of the documentaries are available, all thanks to the streaming platforms that we are able to access to. Now, this is the documentary that I was talking about. Okay, please watch that. That's a fabulous one. Okay. So features of a documentary would be that they are non-narrative, not fictional. Okay, not fictional in that sense. They are reality-based. They're based on certain aspects from reality. Please understand, do not ever say documentary gives you reality 100%. It never happens in a documentary, because even in a documentary, there is a filmmaker who decides what he wants or what he doesn't want. So there is always a point of view that is there in a documentary. So you can never ever say that, documentary gives you reality sent person, but it is based on reality. So it's informative. There is an element of authenticity. You can believe in what you're seeing. Visual storytelling, showing is believing, right? Showing is believing. So visual storytelling that happens over there. There is a creative expression. Somebody is trying to present it in a very convincing manner to have. Length is important. There are a few documentaries which are just about half an hour, few documentaries which are about 2.5 hours. Depends on all of that. Then interview based that I told you. Objectivity, meaning they are always trying to figure out what is the right way of doing things. Okay. And the purpose also I have mentioned. Now let me go one documentary. I'll just introduce you to this one. I will not go into this in detail. Please do watch it because otherwise it spoils the fun. This is another famous documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. Okay, it features even the former vice president. Okay? Now, this entire documentary, look at the poster there, by far the most terrifying film you will ever see. It talks about climate change. It talks about the kind of way in which, our human activity is impacting the planet. You have a lot of scientific data. Then you have a lot of anecdotes and visuals. Have you watched the documentary called The Great Indian Railways? That's a fabulous documentary which talks about the last run of the steam engine. Okay, it shows you the last part of the documentary ends with the steam engine getting back into the shed, because now no longer do you need the steam engine per se. Now you have the latest kind of engines out there. Then why do you need the steam engine? So that is one famous way in which the entire thing is captured for you. Okay, so this captures the climate change. It helps you understand what is the way in which we are affecting the earth around us, and how do we make changes, activism, okay, and what kind of policy changes are required to respond to nature around us. I'm sure all of you know that famous actor Leonardo DiCaprio. DiCaprio is somebody who is a representative of the UN in terms of addressing climatic changes, right? So there is a documentary which captures that for you. Similarly, don't you know about the Dabbawalas in Mumbai? The Dabbawalas who carry lunch boxes for people? There is a documentary on them, the Dabbawalas. So those documentaries are very helpful in terms of us understanding, because there are interviews in between, somebody's anecdotes meaning people narrating their experiences, visuals are there, footages are there, all of these together make it a documentary. Now, having said this, I will just quickly touch upon the difference between the two. Okay, so when we are saying documentary, it's based on real life events. Fiction may be inspired by real life, but is often imagined. You imagine things to happen in a particular manner. Okay, you imagine how that can happen that way. Okay, and in documentary, what happens is most of the time they want to present facts. The other one, they can twist and turn it the way they feel like. I'm sure you would have watched films like DDLJ, so many of those films, right? So they are presenting facts the way in which they feel like. It is not a fact per se, it becomes a fiction. And documentary, you have real life people. In fiction, you have characters who are created by the filmmaker. Documentary need not follow a particular structure per se, but fiction, you have a continuous narrative, because then only can you believe in the story that you are seeing. So documentary, what happens is that you keep shifting between time. And most often, here it is straightforward, while in fiction, what we are doing is we are using a lot of techniques to make it believable. You want the audience to believe in what you are seeing. Okay. Having established that, now let me go towards the specific topic that we are talking about. Okay. Now, if you see the early days of filmmaking, cinema started in 1895. Okay, with the Lumiere brothers. What happened was that Lumiere films were like short episodic films. They were not your typical stories and all. Okay, so that was primarily non-fiction. It was primarily non-fiction. Workers leaving the Lumiere factory, mother feeding a baby, gardener watering the plants. These were the kind of films that they showed. But after some point of time, fiction films became more popular, like D.W. Griffith, George Melis, a lot of other fiction films came into it. As a result, what happened was that you had two parties out there. On one hand, you have the Hollywood tradition, which is predominantly focusing on narrative or fiction films. On the other hand, you have the documentary tradition. So there was a clear kind of divide, fiction and non-fiction. Okay. Now, you might say, did it start then or did it start as a recent development? That is a problematic question, because many people say that it started way back in the 20th century itself. Many people say, no, it started recently in the 21st century. Whatever said and done, there is a dichotomy which has been addressed. Okay. Just a second, please.
In the meanwhile, let's welcome the head of our department, for the program.
Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So what happened was that when you have a division and you have two camps there, documentary on one side, fiction film on other side, what was the need of the hour? Okay, need of the hour was that documentary deals with issues of which are contemporary, problems which are extremely important, and they have to be addressed. Okay, they have to be addressed. Like problems of racial discrimination have been addressed, problems of poverty have been addressed, climate change, the fact that your glaciers are melting, so many things have been addressed. Okay, then, but what also they understood was that documentary was the best way to make something appear realistic. Okay, but sometimes what happens is when you have serious issues, documentary can be a little disturbing. You want it to be a little comfortable to understand. It should be palpable. That's what I meant in palpable form, meaning something that you feel a little comfortable understanding. Because if what do you say? Let's say there is a lot of let's say now so many are talking about documentaries on the pandemic, corona. But if you just simply show the deaths that happened during the pandemic, won't it be a little too depressing for us? We will be extremely, depressed once we watch the documentary. So you want to make it engaging. You want to make it in a format so that it appeals to the people best. I have put a picture here, Moana, that is Robert Flaherty's, that's considered to be the first docufiction. Okay, Moana is considered as the first docufiction by Robert Flaherty. Flaherty is called as the father of documentary. He made the first documentary called Nanook North. Okay, now this one, we will come back to it in a little while. So what is then docufiction? Documentary and fiction occupy two sides. Okay. Now, what happens in a docufiction is that fiction combines with non-fiction, okay, and talks about issues of social relevance. So it becomes like a hybrid film. Okay. The boundaries are blurred. You can no longer say this is fiction, that is non-fiction. You cannot say that. So the generic conventions that you associate with documentary, conventions you associate with fiction films are kind of blurred for you to understand that in a better manner. So what happens is, now this is a famous docufiction, okay, welcome to Canada. In that, real life events and people and places are dramatized or fictionalized. Let's say, haven't you seen docufictions on war? They cannot definitely show you the war again. So what they do, they reenact it. Okay, real life people come and reenact it. So they mix some real life footage, then they dramatize some situations as well. So what happens over is people are acting it out for you again. That is what we mean by reenactment. Okay. So there in that you feel a little comfortable watching it as against just watching the harsh reality. Okay. So fictionalized scenes can be brought in. Interviews with real life subjects can be brought in to give you more insight, more understanding of the situation, the context, the time period. So there is what you call as real scenario fictionalized for you at times. Okay, so that you can understand the social issue, cultural issue, political issue, historical issue in a more palpable manner. Now, this is a famous docufiction. Please do watch it. Close Up, Kiarostami's masterpiece. Okay, it's Kiarostami's masterpiece. Please do watch that. It's available, and I strongly recommend that. So what happens over here is that at a point of time, you start wondering which is drama, which is fact, which is fiction, which is non-fiction. So that kind of challenging happens. Now, as much as docufiction is a powerful tool for telling you a story, because, you're not just telling it in blunt terms, most often, I would close a very, openly admit, when I tell my students, let's watch a documentary, most often students say, ma'am, let's watch a film, ma'am, story is better, ma'am. They keep saying that way. But docufiction is engaging because it has a story element as well. There will be a story element, so it will be engaging for the audience as well. Okay? But there are certain ethical concerns that we have with fiction in terms of, what is fiction, which is the reality part in it. We have a confusion in our mind. Okay? Now, with regard to Close Up, I want you to just pay an attention to this particular quote by the filmmaker himself. Close-Up is a very particular film in my oeuvre. It's a film that was made in a very particular way, mainly because I didn't really have the time to think about how to go about making the film. Look at that. He never even thought about how to make the film. So he went about making the film as and when the film was evolving. So that is wonderfully in terms of what you say, spontaneity that you are thinking about in terms of docufiction. Now, let me come to an important idea, that is, how does cinema, literature, and docufiction, the interface happen? Most often, what you also understand is that they can be adaptations of literary works. There can be adaptations of literary works. They use for their source, certain narratives and characters from literature as well. Now, this is another famous documentary, okay, Taxi by Jafar Panahi. Please watch that. The taxi becomes a space where everything happens. People coming into the taxi, the driver interacting with the customers who are coming in the taxi. That's a fabulous one. Okay? And sometimes what happens is that instead of telling you in a very prosaic, boring, straightforward manner, they can make it very cinematic for you. So that is what I meant in terms of taking creative liberties. They can take a lot of creative liberties. Another one is hybridization. This again happens with regard to cinema, literature, and docufiction per se. So what happens over here is hybridity comes in terms of bringing in multiple different elements. So on one hand, you will have interviews. One hand, you will have some characters who are playing out certain parts for you. On the other hand, you will also have some footage, archival footage. When you watch so many of these documentary, like especially the documentary on Princess Diana, you will see there are real clippings of when Diana was alive, photographs of that particular time. Then her interviews, likewise, you have quite a bit over. So you have archival footage, you have reenactment, you have interviews, everything coming together in one format. That is what we call in terms of docufiction. Okay. Then they create a narrative, like how in literature, they will create a narrative which will be at a time literary as well as cinematic. Literary because there is a plot in that, characters in that, there is a theme that is involved, all of that is there. Cinematic because there is drama in it. There is a kind of performance that you see in that. So concurrently, it will be simultaneously literary as well as it will be cinematic as well. Another one is docufiction believes in visual storytelling. Visual storytelling. So visual story, now this is a famous docufiction. I'm so sorry I'm going on telling you these are famous ones, but please do watch it, because you're going to initiate this particular paper. Please do watch these docufiction because that will give you a better understanding. See, I believe that my presentation will be only contributing 10%, 90% comes from you watching all these films. When you watch more films, your understanding will be further deepened by that. Okay. So they incorporate visual storytelling techniques for you. And these storytelling techniques, first person or what you say, third person narration. Don't you have in documentaries, don't you have a narrator who is narrating it for you? So that can be inspired. The way the narrator tells you can be inspired from literature. Sometimes they use symbols, symbols, the way in which they use camera, Man with a Movie Camera, Ziga Vertov's documentary. Okay. They use metaphors. They use allusion, reference to another work. All of these can be very clearly used. And through these, what happens is that it can create a deeper meaning for you. Camera buff is a very important docufiction where the camera works as a metaphor. It works as a powerful tool in that, okay? And through that, you can communicate emotions and you can create a mood for a particular scene per se. One more aspect is, as I told you, voiceover narration. Okay, voiceover. Have you watched the film Lagan? When the film starts off, don't you have narration by Amitabh Bachchan? Amitabh Bachchan narrates in the opening part of Lagan. If you have watched Shawshank Redemption, you have the character, first person narration. You have a character who is narrating it for you, right? Similarly, I do not know whether you are exposed to Malayalam films. If you have watched the film June or have watched recently, there have been a lot of Netflix films and all where you have characters narrating stories for you. Okay, so voiceover is very, very important. The narration may be written by a separate writer, okay, or it can be taken from a source material. It can be from any of those, okay, and this will give you insight into the story. Now, this one, Pedro Costa's Colossal Youth, also uses these kind of, narrative kind of techniques, which are extremely stimulant. This is a docufiction, another docufiction that, please do try and watch that. Now I'll introduce you to two docufictions, and I will wind up with that, and then I will take, the discussions. Okay. Sorry, ma'am, I didn't see. I just saw your right now, Diana, ma'am. I got your call right now. Do I have 5 more minutes to continue? I'll be winding up. Do I have 5 more minutes? Then I'll take questions, or do you want me to quickly wind up? Hello?
Ma'am,
Yes.
are you able to hear us, ma'am?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Tell me, please.
We have ample amount of time, ma'am. Can you
Okay, fine. So I have this two or three more slides. That's all that I have, because after that I will take up questions, because I have tried to keep it in terms of introduction to the topic plus orienting them towards docufiction. Now, this is a famous docufiction, The Thin Blue Line. Okay. Now, here the docufiction is about two people. Okay. Two people, they are inmates, and they were involved in the shooting of a police officer. Okay. And they're narrating what happened. What happened, they're narrating. Okay. What happens is that narration is again and again reenacted for you. Okay. It's going on reenacted in the docufiction. So after a point of time, you are confused. Which is the right thing? Who is saying the truth? Who actually shot the police officer? That confusion starts settling. So what happens is that you understand that truth cannot be seen as a singular understanding. So truth itself becomes subjective. It itself keeps changing. So we are understanding and negotiating with what you call the divide between fact and fiction. So this is a fabulous way in which, when the two people are going on narrating, that's getting reenacted. Okay. Are you following? Gets reenacted, and we don't know who is saying the truth and whom should we believe. We audiences also get confused. That reminds me, I'm sure you would have all been exposed to Rashomon, famous film, Kurosawa's famous film Rashomon. Have one person who's murdered in Rashomon, and you have so many people telling what happened and who killed the person. Each one has a different story to tell you. And that is why the film is so famous that to this day we talk about it as Rashomon effect, right? We talk about, multiple perspectives. No singular understanding of truth comes across through Rashomon. So there again, similarly, this one also, the thin line, the line itself is blurred. That's what we are saying. We don't know where truth stands and where fiction is. Now, this is another one. Joshua Oppenheimer's The Act of Killing. This is also a docufiction. It's an Indonesian film. Okay, it talks about the genocide that happened in 1965, the mass killing and all of that. So what happens is that entire docufiction looks from the point of view of the perpetrators, the ones who killed. Okay, it starts looking from their point of view. The key events are again dramatized. It is enacted out. Okay, you definitely can't go back in time. So they enact it out. They present it once again for you. Then there is documentary footage as well. That is also used over there. So what happens is that becomes a unique approach, because you learn history over there. You learn what happened at that point of time. You understand from whose point of view, the power equations you understand. What is it to present it from a particular point? When something is dramatized, how do you read into it? So that also helps you in terms of understanding that. So here, what I want you to keep in mind is that so many of these documentary plus fiction gives you docufiction. So there is elements from literature, there are elements from cinema. So these are brought together to communicate a topic in a very comprehensible and palpable manner. so that you understand it and you engage with the film better. So that I come to the end of my presentation. I think I have taken quite a bit of time because I was told about now if there are doubt, questions or you say or responses, I'll be happy to take that.
Thank you, ma'am, for throwing light on cinema, literature, and docufiction, and for helping us understand the nuances of docufiction better.
May I now call upon our head of the department, Dr. S. Shobana, to give her views about the event.
Most welcome. I should have been here long, an hour ago to be able to welcome you. Most welcome, ma'am. We're happy to have you, though on Zoom. Sometimes you try to make it to Trichy and meet our students and talk more on films. A very ideal topic for youngsters. They are UG students. Thank you very much. Not much my views on the topic. My views on your lecture, but I'm here to thank you profusely on behalf of all the staff and students of the department.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your warm invitation.
Yeah. You just transfer to our students your experience with films, which should be making a big impact on them. They're able to know now that you have viewed those films, and so they will definitely view too. The days students don't even sometimes take to films, and they don't understand the worth of films. And definitely, I think they will view those films that you just listed out and how to view them, expecting to see literature in it, document in it, and of course the film aspects in it will make them be more aware of how films are generally made, and to also know what is what, the three of them from each other. They differ sometimes very distinctly, sometimes very diffusely. They differ or share similarities. And all that having been told to them, I think as teachers, you and I and the rest of them here, the teachers, we can rest assured that they will now hereafter will have a better understanding how films are made to be able to appreciate it better. And so thank you very much for that wonderful session. I thank you profusely on behalf of all the staff here, especially Dr. Dhanapal, who arranged for this. And thank you very much, Dr. Diana, who spoke to you directly and fixed it. Dr. Suresh Frederick, the shift 1. We have 2 shifts, shift 1 UG head and shift 2 staff are here. I thank each of them to be able to be here despite the regular classes, and we're happy that such a thing is happening, and such a thing definitely goes towards making students personally interested in like films, many things associated with the reading of literature. And so thank you so much for
Thank you. You're most welcome. Thank you so much.
opening up this.
I'm not able to hear anything further. Ma'am, the screen is frozen. I'm not able to hear anything further. Hello. Are you able to hear me? Sorry, I think I lost the connection in between.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
My question is how to analyze a character in a film, ma'am?
You're talking in general about a film?
No, ma'am. In particular, docufiction or any documentaries.
Okay, okay. See, normally when we study characters, you need to understand that we use the 5-point model, what we call as the STEAL. Okay, STEAL. Okay, STEAL is in terms of what the character speaks. Okay, what the character thinks. Okay, what kind of an effect the character has on other characters. Okay, then A is in terms of what you call, the kind of way in which the character appears to you. And last one is looks. Okay. So normally when we ask students to analyze characters, you need to understand in terms of their motives, how are these characters shown? Are they like how they were shown at the beginning of the documentary, or are they developing time? What is the kind of intention that the character has? How are they presented? Does the character have an agency of its own? Likewise, you will start looking into it. In docufiction, for example, as I told you, these are actors who are made to enact a particular one, right? So in that particular context, you need to see, what kind of role positions do they take? How do they look at certain situations? Now, I think I told you about the famous one man on wire. Okay. The person who walked himself is talking over there. He gives a lot of interviews. He tells you what happened, how he, what do you say, kind of, tricked the police officers, and he got onto the terrace of the tall building. And from there, he's walked on the wire. All of that is interesting for us to understand him narrating the past. Thereby, what is he constructing it for you? So you will look into characters in terms of the acronym STEAL, STEAL, that is one. Apart from that, please also look at how are they positioned, their motives, their intention, their relationship to other characters as
Thank you, ma'am.
well.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm
Good
from
afternoon.
third. My question is that how do we use content analysis in analyzing a particular film?
Content analysis.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, you will be doing that comes as part of your, let's say you're undertaking research. Okay. You're undertaking research. In that, you will be looking at what is being shown. Like, so one of your faculty members was talking about semiotics, right? Similarly, here you'll be looking at what is being shown, what is the content deliver in terms of, how does it communicate a particular idea? What is the politics that is coming across? What does that content, communicate or connect to? What is the significance? What is the implication? You will be doing that. It depends on what your research question is. We take up different strategies, like, for example, narrative analysis, discourse analysis, content analysis. We take all of these depending on what is the question that you have. So depending on your question, if you want to understand what is there in the content, that is when you take up, you will be analyzing what is being said, how things happen. Now, for example, if I take docufiction, I told you about the thin blue line. You will start looking into each aspect of the content. What does it signify? What does it mean? How does it communicate a particular idea? You will.
Okay.
I hope I have explained. Thank you.
One last question. Anybody? Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
For our innovative assignment, we are shooting a short film and also a documentary from our class, ma'am.
Okay.
So we are on way writing the scripts, and while writing the scripts, we face a problem, ma'am. we don't know how to write a background of a character. We are not able to bring out the character background, ma'am. How can we
Okay.
connect that?
Okay. See, what happens is that sometimes when you start off, writing, see, personally, I haven't written scripts, but I have read quite a number of scripts. So from that reading experience and my understanding of what I teach in the class, I will tell you. Now, what we do is either we give a frame story for the character. Like if you have watched the film Citizen Kane, okay, in that we understand the character through different people talking about this character. So thereby you build the character. That is one way. Or you start with a narration. Somebody is introducing the character and telling you a few things about it. Or you just show the character. By showing, people will understand, okay, fine, this is how it is. He's from here. He does all of these things. He has these kind of intentions. So either it can be showing, can be telling, or it can be through other people telling for you. Likewise, you have to decide which strategy works very well for your script. How do you want it? You want to directly tell everything to your audience, or you want to just show them and let them understand based on what you show, or you want to make through connections, instances. From instances, we read a character. That can also happen. The other day, I was watching a detective film. Okay, when I was watching the detective film, what I was understanding was that we don't know anything about the murderer in that, but the character of the murderer is slowly placed through the clues here and there. He has interacted with these people. He frequents this particular place. Likewise, we understand. So think about, how best you want to show your character without giving away too much to your audience. In the sense, don't divulge all the suspense. There must be something gripping in your script, right? So that element, the gripping factor, keep that in your script and develop your character.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we've come to the end of the session.
Acknowledging the good that we already have in life is the foundation for all abundance, says Eckhart Tolle. May I now call upon Dr. Susigaran, RSA, Associate Professor, Department of English, to propose the vote of thanks.
I deem it as a privilege and an honor to stand here and propose my vote of thanks. I go by the quotes like, no duty is more urgent than that of returning thanks. So thanks is a very simple word, but more powerful. Today is a regular working day, ma'am. And in spite of the busy schedule, right from the morning till evening, students from both shift 1 and 2 are here. So this is a seminar hall, which comprises about 400 students here. And you're just seeing one view of the camera here. And the entire hall is jam-packed with students of both shift 1 and 2. It's all because of two things more colorful here. First thing is, when this invitation was posted in almost all the class WhatsApp groups, quite a lot of queries came because this topic was quite different, like docufiction. So everybody, every single soul, a teenager till an elderly person, is interested in cinema as well as his documentation and docufiction. So there comes a very big interest that everybody was interested. Even staff members in their free hours came here and they sat and listened to your lecture. I was listening to your lecture. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation. In a very short notice that when Diana ma'am rang up to you, that you were wholehearted in accepting our invitation and throwing your presence through online mode. We are looking forward that in the days to come that you will come inside our campus, walk inside our campus and have a talk with our students face to face. So thank you so much, ma'am. And the topic was really wonderful. And that Pythagoras of information, what you gave, like one side is literature and another side is docufiction and cinema. Of course, it was really wonderful, throwing snippets on various information. The only thing is that the time was very short. We just want to listen to some more time to your lecture. The time was very short. I'm really thankful for all the efforts that you have taken here, sparing your wonderful time here. Thank you, Arya Ayappan ma'am, for all sharing all your expertise with, to our students of both Shift 1 and 2, aided and ASF. Next, I lay my sincere thanks to the principal of giving us an opportunity, the freedom to conduct programs like this. In absentia, I thank the principal, Dr. Paul Diabran, for helping us to hold these kind of functions in the Department of English. Next, I lay my sincere thanks to Dr. S. Shobana ma'am, the department, head Department of English, for sparing us her time. In spite of that, we are running for NAC, and in spite of that, she has thrown her presence from the Deanery of Academics here, sitting, listening to this session. And though she came late, she was very much eager, rushing up here and listening to this session. Thank you so much. In absentia, I thank Shobana ma'am. I lay my sincere thanks to Dr. Suresh Frederick sir for being here right from the beginning till the end now. It's all because of his efforts that most of the programs are organized here in this campus in Shift 1. And he is representing here as an icon of Shift 1. And my sincere thanks to Dr. C. Dhanabal sir, coordinator of Shift 2. And he's the one who was instrumental in arranging all these programs. And this was thanks that he has opened the doors for Shift 1 students also. And when students came there and were standing outside, I asked them, why are you standing here? They said that listening to a lecture from standing outside this particular hall. I said, which class you belong to? They said, first year of UG. So this topic was really catchy even for the first year of UG students, and they all are standing at the back and listening to your lecture from the beginning till now. And I thank Miss Rajalakshmi ma'am, Dr. Diana ma'am, Dr. Annie Karunya Bhagyam, and all the professors from the Department of English, irrespective of whether they are in Shift 1 or in Shift 2. I thank my loving students here. Normally, when a notepad is given, students will be very busy with their Blackberries and iPhones. But only in this seminar that I have seen them writing from all the nooks and corners about the information which was displayed on the screen. So my sincere thanks to the students of the Department of English, UGPG, even the research students are here. Thank you so much. Not the least, I thank Lord God Almighty for showering his blessings, giving us all, making us all hale and healthy, assembled here and listening to a wonderful lecture from Christ University, a professor from Christ University. I also lay my sincere thanks to the Department of IT support for planting a camera here and all those kind of technological activities being done right from yesterday evening. My sincere thanks to the electrician, my sincere thanks to the event managers and the hall arrangement people and the canteen judges for providing a wonderful lunch. Today is a regular working day and the regular working lunch was arranged for the students. Thank you so much, ma'am. Looking forward for your colorful presence here inside this campus. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that warm vote of thanks. And I must thank each and every one of you for your patient listening and students for asking me these questions, because, you know, we really learn a lot when students keep asking, because, for example, he was asking about script writing. And I keep asking students, you know, when they write script, you know, let us also read those so that, you know, we also learn from them. And thank you for the invitation. Definitely looking forward to coming to your campus, ma'am and sir, to meet your students. And a big thanks to Danny, because it's through Danny that I was able to reach out to you, and hope my session has done justice to what you have proposed. And most humble request to all the students. As I tell my students over here, my lecture constitutes only 10%. Rest, I tell them, watch films, because nothing can educate you as much as you interact with the text. So watch a lot of these docufictions, then your knowledge will increase more than what you can even think of. So happy viewing. Have a great time. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful time. Friends, please stay back.
May I log out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Have a good
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that wonderful session, ma'am. Friends, please stay back.